fighting in Lebanon, and the U.S. Marines again come under fire. In the Philippines, up to 2 million turn out for the funeral of an opposition leader. Good morning, this is Doug Poling with the CBS World News Roundup. Challenger is now doing what it's supposed to do. This morning, the shuttle Challenger launched a communications satellite into orbit.
Launch of a communication satellite for the nation of India. Astronaut Guyan Bluford watched as the INSAT-1B was pushed out of the cargo bay.
Roger, Houston, and we're happy to let you know that INSAT was deployed on time with no anomalies, and the satellite looked good.
Well, that's excellent. Good show. You guys have maintained the shuttle's perfect record.
The perfect record is 6 satellite launches from orbiting shuttles, though one, the Tidris, later went haywire on its way to synchronous orbit. It hasn't been all work for the Shuttle 8 crew. They've marveled at the erupting volcano Iliwerong in the Asian Pacific and the sands of Kalahari in Africa as the world turns beneath them. Reed Collins, CBS News at the Kennedy Space Center.
Specialists are playing pharmacists this morning, working with the Space Drug Making Laboratory, CFIS. It's been a good day for the Shuttle Challenger and for the Indian Space Command, which listened in as Commander Dick Truly described the successful deployment of the Indian satellite INSAT.
We had no vibration in the vehicle that we could sense during the spin, but we had a real good clunk that we all felt through the orbiter structure right at deploy.
In a few hours, Challenger will be flipped over so that its tail is facing the sun. That's to see how the cold of deep space affects the crew canopy. Right now, though, Mission Control is discussing with the crew another problem with the hydraulic system. Yesterday, it was number 2. Today, pressure dropping in hydraulic system number 1.
CBS News, this is Rob Armstrong. Challenger today launched a communications satellite for India. A short while ago, the crew received a telephone call from President Reagan congratulating them on their mission.
I know it was touch and go with the weather, but you were launched right on schedule, and I think about 250 million Americans breathed a great sigh of relief.
In a few minutes, the shuttle crew is scheduled for its second sleep period since Tuesday morning's launch.
The crazy nighttime schedule on this 8th shuttle mission was all for the benefit of the Indian government, which wanted its $50 million communication satellite INSAT launched from the cargo bay.
Well, we've obviously had a technical malfunction with that tape report. Wayne Del Chipino will be bringing us up to date later on.
CBS News, I'm Douglas Edwards. America's first black spaceman, Guyan Bluford, was at the controls successfully launching an Indian satellite from Challenger's cargo bay. Today, President Reagan called Challenger, talking with Bluford and the rest of the crew, praising Bluford for advancing what the president called an American era of brotherhood.
The spacecraft, folks, that the spacecraft was alive and well when it left, because at about 1 minute and 20 seconds, I saw the automatic mutation control system come on, and I saw a couple jets fire, so it was working good.
NASA says it's not overly concerned about continued problems in the hydraulic system. 2 separate pumps have been acting up and losing pressure at times. Those pumps aren't important now, but they are necessary for re-entry on Labor Day. The crew will be awakened at 8 tonight for its 3rd day in space.
CBS News, I'm Stephanie Shelton. Astronauts on a weird shift that had them going to bed at 2 p.m. this afternoon are awake now, beginning their 3rd day in space. Spencer Allen takes a look at the work schedule.
The most spectacular activity coming up is operating the Canadian-built robot arm. Mission specialists Guyan Bluford and Dale Gardner will manipulate the arm to grasp a 2.5-ton dummy payload and move it out of the cargo bay. They will wave it in several configurations, simulating the moving of large mass heavyweight objects in future flights. On Shuttle Flight 13, a 20,000 Earth-pound instrument package is scheduled to be deployed by the arm. The remote manipulator has worked almost flawlessly so far. Now NASA wants to make sure it can handle these anticipated massive loads.
The new experiment was the idea of some Japanese students. It flew on Shuttle Mission 6, but the temperature was too cold that time, so they'll try it again. The dummy is an aluminum light structure weighing more than 8,000 pounds, a fake for use in tests with the big Canadian arm. The shuttle's big chores are already behind them. The tracking satellite has been providing clear pictures and voice communications, just as advertised, and the Indian government satellite INSAT was sent on its way as Commander Richard Truly provided the play-by-play.
The spacecraft was alive and well when I left because at about a minute and 20 seconds I saw the automatic mutation control system come on and I saw a couple jets fire, so it was working good.
The flight couldn't remain flawless forever, and if a problem was going to crop up, you could almost guess where it would be. A second circulation pump in Challenger's hydraulic system malfunctioned, and the rapid pressure drop apparently had the commander truly worried, especially when Mission Control told him to turn it on after he had just cut it off.
Okay, I promise I'll do it. The only thing that concerns me about it, Fish, is that both times, by the time we got the tone, the pressure had already plummeted, and in fact, when I had just been back to learn I have no idea how long it would go.
The crew appears healthy and happy in their spaceship, working in a rapid pace, except when the phone rang earlier today. It was President Ronald Reagan with words of praise, especially for America's first black astronaut, Guy Bluford.
Guy, congratulations. You, I think, are paving the way for many others, and you're making it plain that we are in an era of brotherhood here in our land.
Reagan also cheered on NASA's oldest astronaut, Bill Thornton, 54 years old. The president saying he was inspired to fly, Thornton responding with the thumbs-up sign. Wayne Dolcefino, KTRH News, the Johnson Space Center.
As they say in NASA Ease, the technical problem has been overcome. The situation is nominal. Now, KTRH's Mike McKean's exclusive report on a state audit of Metro's Bus Repair Program.
The Space Shuttle Challenger have been awakened for their third day in space. They'll put the shuttle's robot arm through its paces by lifting and moving an unbalanced object.
CBS News, I'm Jay Jones. With tests and experiments, as Bill Lynch reports.
The 50-foot Canadian-built robot arm cannot even support its own weight when extended on Earth. But in the low gravity of space, it is now moving to and fro with a 7,400-pound dumbbell, more than twice the weight it has lifted on earlier shuttle tests. The long, jointed arm is designed to lift the orbiter's maximum payload weight of 65,000 pounds and could deploy or retrieve some very large satellites. The series of tests now being conducted by mission specialist Dale Gardner will take about 6 hours and will involve a variety of different maneuvers, grappling the 3.5-ton weight at 2 points. In addition to its lifting ability, the crew is working to establish the arm's accuracy. The objective is to position a payload within 2 inches of a planned location. So far in this morning's test, the crew has apparently been too busy to say much about the arm's performance, and Mission Control has received little data on the checkout. Bill Lynch, CBS News at the Kennedy Space Center.
Still evidently not working real. Roger, John. Understand, and just keep us advised. Thanks for telling us. Roger that.
Computer's still having something of a problem here. Of course, that problem earlier was with the computers at White Sands, the missile testing range, where they are doing the plurality testing procedures. You are listening to Dial-a-Shuttle, monitoring the STS-8 challenge flight.
In Houston, we are complete with the LSS test. We're moving on to the automotive valve. Roger that, Richard. Thanks a lot.
Spectacular photography here this morning of the Payload Flight Test Article. The 85 Earth weight, of course. Article with grapple pictures for them to fling around in space and test a variety of their maneuvers with the RMS, remote manipulator system. They have announced that there will be no teeters for day 3. You are listening to Dial-a-Shuttle, live transmission between
Challenger, Houston, if you could check the flight deck cameras on, we would appreciate it. We can get a last view of you here before you go over the hill. Roger, Houston, it's on. Thank you.
the RMS would be grappling
a good view of you here, Richard Dale, during your testing activity. Okay.
Dale Gardner and Dick Truly in the payload, the aft flight section, working with the Payload Flight Test Article. Maneuvering it about. Looks like we're about to lose the signal again, which occurs without teeters because of the spaceship going in and out of tracking ranges. Loss of signal totally in 53 seconds. Some beautiful pictures even without teeters this morning. Communication very clear.
And we're on page 7-3. I'm just driving the shoulder yaw to -60 there in the middle of the page. Signal. Okay, we're following you, Dale. Thanks.
These tests involved here in STS.
We're going LOS here in about 30 seconds. See you at Mila in 3 minutes.
These tests on the PFTA here in STS-8 are to provide further experience and useful planning for the STS-13 mission. During that flight, the arm will be used for two purposes. One is going to be the deployment of a 20,000-pound long-duration exposure facility. The second is to retrieve the presently orbiting but malfunctioning solar maximum satellite, place it in the payload bay of the orbiter, and redeploy it after some repairs have been completed. We should receive signals once again in about 2.5 minutes. Dial-a-Shuttle is produced as a service by the National Space Institute, a non-profit educational organization. We receive none of the phone company charges for calls to this service. To join NSI, call now toll-free 1-800-453-7000. In Utah, Alaska, or Hawaii, write NSI, Suite 203 West, 600 Maryland Avenue, Southwest, Washington, D.C. 20024. Or call. Of course, this arm has been used extensively on STS missions.
Challenger, Houston, with you at Mila for 3.5 minutes. Back to you, lab clear.
More pictures coming in from the shuttle. These do not seem to be as clear as the others that we've had this morning. Some marginal interference seems to be of the payload flight bay. Mission elapsed time now, 2 days, 3 hours, 30 minutes, and 38 seconds. I believe we're looking at
Mission Control, Houston, in acquisition again through Merritt Island launch area. Still getting television of the Payload Flight Test Article extended on the RMS remote manipulator system. Outgoing Flight Director Randy Stone will have his change of shift press conference in the Building 2 newsroom at JSC at 5:15 Central Daylight Time. Approximately 13 minutes from now.
pictures still coming through quite clear. Beautiful pictures this morning.
4-9. Roger, Houston, see you there. We're just about to start the auto sync.
LOS, of course, is loss of signal. that point at which we cannot hear them any longer or receive telemetry data. We have lost now. Acquisition again in 16 minutes and 23 seconds. It's going to be some time before they reach the Dakar range. Where? Dakar Senegal range. Mission elapsed time now, 2 days, 3 hours, 33 minutes, 35 seconds. Dial-a-Shuttle is produced and serviced by the National Space Institute, a non-profit educational membership organization.
The PV of the Payload Flight Test Article extended out on the Canadian-built remote manipulator system. And Challenger has demonstrated that it can bench press 8,500 pounds without benefit of steroids. Flight Director Randy Stone's press conference will be at 5:15 Central Daylight Time.
CBS News, this is Charles Osborne. Muscles today, the orbiting space shuttle hoisted a nearly 4-ton weight, a dumbbell of sorts, at the end of its robot arm, and in doing so, proved that the 50-foot crane-like arm can in fact be used in the future to place heavy satellites out in space.
With the satellite itself, it's with the ground station at White Sands Missile Range, New Mexico. A computer problem knocked the TDRS system off the air nearly 12 hours ago as the astronauts slept. Mission Control has completed about half the tests they wanted to perform with the tracking satellite for next fall's Space Lab mission, but Flight Director Randy Stone thinks the system will be working again before this flight is over.
Everyone must remember that this is a very new system and a very complex system, and it's just suffering normal high technology growing pains, and I think we'll get them straightened out in a day or two, and it'll operate as advertised.
Also malfunctioning this morning, a camera in the payload bay that provides those wide-angle views of the Challenger's tail with the Earth in the background. Working just fine, though, is the mechanical arm, waving an 8,500-pound dummy payload around in space. Live at the Johnson Space Center, Wayne Del-Chifino, KTRH News.
It's exactly 7 o'clock. South Korea says it's almost certain that a jumbo jet en route to Seoul has been shot down. The Lebanese army has apparently regained control of West Beirut.
Good morning. This is Doug Poling with the CBS World News Roundup.
Challenger astronauts are busy working this morning. We hear about what they're doing from Reed Collins at the Kennedy Space Center.
Challenger is doing some weightlifting this morning. The robot arm has hoisted a 7,500-pound dumbbell from the cargo bay, and mission specialist Dale Gardner says so far, so good.
Works like a champ.
The Canadian-built arm will be used to retrieve ailing satellites for repair, and one day may be used to build a permanent station in space. For a period of 3 hours, the ground lost contact with the space shuttle because data was being sent through the TDRS satellite launched by Shuttle 6, and there was a failure at the reception station at White Sands, New Mexico. For most of the mission, Dr. William Thornton has been virtually silent. Too busy, they say, with his medical experiments. So busy, his biofeedback test has been delayed. Today, the mysterious Dr. Thornton promises to give a full account of himself and his works in the laboratory aloft. Reed Collins, CBS News at the Kennedy Space Center.
CBS News, I'm Richard C. Hautelet.
But bedtime for the crew of the Space Shuttle Challenger. KTRH's Wayne Del-Chifino has details from the Johnson Space Center.
Mission Control let the crew eat dinner and get to sleep earlier than scheduled after hours of work with the big Canadian arm. It was a way of finding out if the arm can be used in the future for depositing big satellites in space. Judging from Commander Dick Truly, it can.
Boy, it sure is a fine piece of machinery, and it worked like a champ today.
Some light was shed on the biggest mystery of Shuttle Mission 8, the whereabouts of Dr. Bill Thornton, who canceled 2 TV appearances. Mission Control was getting curious, so Commander Truly cornered Dr. Bill and declared he was safe and not lost.
You might notice that Bill was still in the same clothes that he wore for lunch.
The tracking satellite worked intermittently today. Flight directors say there are still some bugs in the system. Wayne Dolcefino, KTRH News, the Johnson Space Center.
NBC News, I'm Ann Taylor.
CBS News, I'm Dial-a-Shuttle. CBS News, I'm Jay Jones. Are in the midst of their third working day in orbit, another round of experiments on tap with a mechanical arm.
Pilot for STS-8, the first orbital flight test of the shuttle Columbia. Truly was the pilot on the second orbital test flight of the Space Shuttle Columbia, launched from Kennedy Space Center, Florida, on November 12, 1981. His spacecraft commander for that flight was Colonel Joe H. Ingle of the United States Air Force. He has 3 children: Richard Michael, born on May 10, 1961; Daniel Bennett, born on August 9, 1963; and Lee Margaret, born on September 8, 1964.
Roger, Jeff, last clear. I want to let Dale know if he wants to discuss that RMS master alarm at some point. We have some information on it. It's nothing that's going to affect your operation, so it's really your call if you want to talk about it. Okay, thanks a lot. Dale is busy doing something else, well, he took a break here. He's listening. Go ahead. Okay. Apparently, this is referred to as the ghost alarm, and it was seen on STS-7. What happens is, in direct drive, the joint angles, when the brakes are on, the joint angles are not updated. As soon as you take the brakes to off, software performs a consistency check using the last joint angles that it had. And if you have moved any of the joints while you were in direct drive with the brakes on, then the consistency check is going to fail, and it will give you a control error, a master alarm, and a message. As soon as you cycle the brake switch on and off again, the GPC is going to see this as recycling the brakes, and it resets and it reinitializes the angles in the consistency check, and the errors are all going to be set to off, and you won't get any further master alarms. That's probably what happened.
Okay, Jeff, we understand. I think I've seen and heard something similar to that before we launch. And also, you have a real bad echo now.
The crew being given information about the remote manipulator system, being told that an alarm that they detected earlier today was nothing. Another minor fault in this flight. This is be quite a minor fault, nothing serious. Nothing to shorten the flight. All looks very well in this, the 8th flight Space Shuttle program, America's Space Transportation System, the 3rd flight of the Challenger.
Houston, Senior.
and the last flight of the Challenger for several months, Columbia. Go ahead, Challenger. The original Challenger, Houston.
Houston, CDR on in the orbit ops checklist, page 1-4 on step 1. I thought I'd give you the times just so that if my arithmetic is wrong, you can disagree with me. I started the first roll at 07 minutes after this hour. I've got to start, the next maneuver is set up with a start time of 3 days, 0 hours, 31 minutes and 0 seconds. And I intend to do the stop item 21 at 3 days, 0 hours, 55 minutes. That's 5 minutes and 0 seconds.
Okay, Dick, thanks for the times. One note on the comm. We're talking steadily with the UHF, and when the TDRS sometimes comes in and out, and we have a TDRS on top of the UHF, that's what gives us that echo.
Okay, understand.
You're listening to live conversations with the crew of Challenger and Mission Control here in Houston. 3 days, 21 minutes into the flight. STS-8. Challenger is going back to the hangar for several months for modifications. They have our sister Columbia, the first of the space shuttle to fly in space, is going to be returned to service to execute the STS-9 flight, which is tentatively scheduled for.
And Houston, CDR, there's no hurry, but I've got a mid-option question
for October 28th. That flight will initiate the first flight of the Space Lab, sponsored by the European Space Agency and NASA. Challenger, Houston, I think we've gone LOS during your last question, Dick. We'll pick you up at Mila at 00 plus 23. Challenger is flying across North America right now.
CBS News, I'm Carol Pozevsky.
Houston, the TV picture that we have is a little fuzzy. There we go, now it looks real good.
Yeah, see, you just selected the aft plate. That was the elbow camera you're looking at there at first. And we don't think the lens maybe moves inside there or something. We can see the whole, the cable, the whole ring moving around in the field of view.
Roger, it certainly didn't give us a very good picture. Roger, and we see you and Dan very clearly. It's an excellent picture down here.
Okay.
Dale, we don't think so. We're gonna check on that.
Why don't we continue on with Bravo 18 and 19, and by that time, if you want to do Bravo 17 over, we can do it.
Roger, Dale. We can cut.
Challenger, we'll look at the first over to the earth. Over. Hawaii Island. Orbiter. Robot arm. And bring the satellite on the flight. On the flight with the Payload Flight Test Article. Dumbbell shape of the structure. Orbiter. Now passing over the eastern Pacific Ocean.
Challenger, Houston, we're 30 seconds. Hawaii, LOS. We'll try and pick you up on Teeters. Houston, did you copy your last transmission?
Equatorial visual repeated.
Roger. Challenger, Houston, just a quick question for Dale. During the LOS, when we still had TV, it looked like you were able to run the RMS with your feet. Is that correct?
Well, I was checking out the manure theory that your toes are more useful than your fingers.
Yeah, I agree. Wouldn't want you to be a defeatist.
Actually, normally the way I do it is I have my hands up on A8 for the RMS and my toes back on the keyboard for TRT1, type it in the next OCAD position.
Talking a lot about a little footsie in space here this morning. You are listening to Dial-a-Shuttle.
Roger, Dale. Does that explain some of the problems we've had with the DAP?
No. I leave the DAP set up to the PLD and CDR.
We are seeing live pictures here from the Space Shuttle aft deck.
They're both looking at TRT4 now.
Yeah, Roger, we see that.
Dale Gardner trying to throw a little humor into this flight. At least they're talking. That's something unusual for them here this morning. We would like to take this opportunity to tell you Dial-a-Shuttle is brought to you by the National Space Institute.
CBS News, this is Doug Foley.
Lowered its orbit around the Earth 40 miles, firing the big maneuvering system engines to get down to an orbit where the crew could collect oxygen molecules in a cargo bay container. But most of the morning, as you said, has been spent working with the arm. Mission Control noting specialist Dale Gardner is getting rather versatile.
It looked like you were able to run the RMS with your feet. Is that correct?
I was checking out the manure theory that your toes are more useful than your fingers.
The astronauts were told this morning in a teleprinter message about the tragedy involving the South Korean airliner. So far, there's been no comment from the crew. Wayne Dolcefino, KTRH News, live at the Johnson Space Center. Communication are getting longer and longer this morning between the crew on Challenger, now 120 miles up in space, and the folks on the ground. The tracking data satellite TDRS is not working that well this morning. Audio communication has been tough all day long, and now the pictures from the satellite are not working at all. The crew has been working with the bionic arm this morning, flexing it one more time with that 8,600 dummy payload. Also doing simulations with a 20,000-pound satellite that they'll eventually take up on Shuttle Mission 13. But the gaps in talking to the crew is making it difficult for Mission Control to keep up and for the crew to ask questions. Every time they get contact, the communication is quick. Wayne Dolcefino, KTRH News, live at the Johnson Space Center. Challenger crew said goodnight to Mission Control about a half an hour later than scheduled, trying to configure Challenger's antennas so Mission Control could maintain some sort of communications contact during the crew's sleep period. Ground problems kept conversation and TV pictures to a minimum today, but it didn't keep the astronauts from performing another series of tests with the big mechanical arm, exercises that astronaut Dale Gardner apparently has gotten the hang of.
It looked like you were able to run the RMS with your feet. Is that correct?
Well, I was checking out the Lenore theory that your toes are more useful than your fingers.
NASA Dr. Bill Thornton canceled 2 more scheduled appearances today, including his report on the health of NASA's 6 rodents in space. NASA spokesmen admit they don't know why. Wayne Dolcefino, KTRH News, the Johnson Space Center.
CBS News, I'm Stephanie Shelton. What NASA has dubbed its Red Eye Special Shuttle will be waking up in a few minutes, ready to start another overnight workday, a light one because most of the major work has been done. Today, the crew put the Challenger's robot arm through a second successful weightlifting session, and NASA described the mission so far as a very clean flight. Early tomorrow, there will be a televised news conference, the first from the shuttle during this mission.
Astronauts will hold the first news conference ever conducted in space, and KTRH will be carrying that live. But if you can't be here at 3 o'clock tomorrow morning, KTRH's Wayne Dolcefino will provide a repeat of that at 9:30 tomorrow morning during the Saturday morning report.
CBS News, I'm Stephanie Shelton. Day has begun, but there isn't a great deal scheduled. A few experiments, an overnight news conference, the first on this flight, another workout, the third, with the Challenger's robot arm and that huge white space dumbbell. Now this.
The term nominal was used by Flight Director Harold Drawn when he was asked if this 39th American spaceflight was the dullest.
Wake-up time came about 8:30 Eastern Daylight Time tonight to the strains of the North Carolina Fight Song, astronaut physician Bill Thornton's alma mater. And among the messages relayed to the Houston-based astronauts from Mission Control was this item.
An update to the news, the Astros just finished playing again, and they beat the Cubs again, 6-5. So they're 5.5 out.
Outstanding.
Much of Saturday's schedule is a continuation of today's experiments. More transmission tryouts with the new tracking and data relay satellite, another robot arm workout, and a live news conference with reporters at the Johnson Space Center in Houston, scheduled for 3:53 in the morning Eastern Daylight Time. Spencer Allen for CBS News, Kennedy Space Center.
By now, the crew of Challenger has exercised its bionic arm in almost every position possible. If it was a human arm, it would be most certainly muscle-bound by now. The long periods of communication silence continues as NASA tries to iron out the bugs, mostly on the ground, in their tracking satellite TDRS. When it has worked, it has provided marathon television shows. The nights here, to say the least, have been long. NASA has certainly gotten its wish. This 8th flight of the space shuttle has been unusually routine. Reporters have complained about it privately, but hats off tonight to my colleague Lee Dunbar of the Los Angeles Times, who had the guts to ask flight boss Harold Drawn the question everyone else wanted to ask.
Harold, can you recall a duller space flight?
Well, it has been a fairly nominal one. I was assistant flight director on Apollo 8 when Borman took the first flight to the moon, and we were 2.5 days out and have yet to log an anomaly. there were some long shifts there, and it was a kind of a unusual situation to be there for the first time and not have anything to work on.
Of course, there are always the little things, like the space toilet, which seems to clog up on every flight. It's a sticky situation when it's the only one around for the 5-member crew.
Just jiggling the handle of helium medicine at home if you want to. It's about as scientific as the fix is. We recycle a system and it cleared yesterday. Today we tried it once and it didn't. We repeated it and it cleared the second time.
But when the toilet works, reporters must search for a story somewhere else. And on this flight, it continues to be the elusive Dr. Bill. You may remember we confirmed that NASA's 54-year-old astronaut was really on the shuttle. And at last report, he was still wearing Tuesday's launch suit and still avoiding mission control, which tried to catch him again in tonight's wake-up call.
Good morning, Dr. Thornton.
Dr. Thornton passes us good morning. He's already hard at work in his office.
We should have figured. There should be excitement early in the morning when NASA uses its tracking satellite for the first press conference from outer space. It will start shortly before 3 in the morning, and KTRH will cover it live. Wayne Dolcefino, KTRH News, the Johnson Space Center.
I'm Michael Hoy. 2 o'clock.
CBS News, I'm Mike Stanley. The Soviet around NASA 5 days into the mission of Challenger. So much so, everything going without a hitch or a glitch, that an almost boring routine has been established on the mission. The astronauts this morning worked out the star tracking navigation system that will play a vital role in the next mission. Like everything else on the mission, it functioned flawlessly. Within the hour, the crew will hold a nearly half-hour news conference in orbit, the first such event in 11 years of the space program. CBS News, I'm Mike Stanley.
This conference concluded with a mail run. There were big reports.
All 5 STS-8 astronauts were available for the questioning. Mission Commander Richard Truly was asked about the difficulty of making the first scheduled nighttime landing at Edwards Air Force Base on Monday.
We have developed a night lighting system that, in consonance with good weather and with the heads-up display, as far as doing it the first time, I think Dan and I are quite ready to do it, and I don't frankly think it's going to be more difficult than a day landing.
Truly said the shuttle spacecraft runs by itself. Mission specialist Bill Thornton was asked how the 6 rats are doing in their experimental cage.
Like the rest of us, they've settled in quite nicely, feeding, grooming, and such as that, doing well.
After lunch, their time, the astronauts go back to work testing the spacecraft's 50-foot robot arm. David Dick, CBS News at the Kennedy Space Center.
CBS News is next. CBS News, this is Rob Armstrong. Challenger talked to Earthbound reporters today. William Thornton, at 54, this country's oldest space traveler, said he found the trip a humbling experience. We don't stop life, he said, just because we have a few years. Guyon Bluford, America's first black astronaut in space, said it's a dream fulfilled for him. And Richard Truly, the mission commander who was aboard the second flight of the shuttle Columbia, says the program has come a long way.
We have graduated in a little over a year and a half to a system that's routinely, we think, deploying satellites, meeting our commitments to the customers, and I think in this short period of time for a vehicle this complicated, that's amazing.